Hey, this is Ross with Ross Hog Smokers. Let's talk about welding. So most people think welding is gluing two pieces of metal together. Well, it's not exactly false, but that's definitely not true. So what you're actually doing is you're taking one piece of metal. It could be a different thickness. It could be a different type of metal. That's a different discussion for another time. I don't know a whole lot about that. But I do know that you can take a thicker metal and you can weld a thinner piece to it. And welding is not gluing, like I said. You are essentially melting this piece of metal and this piece of metal, and they are forming one piece. Many times, and actually 99.9% of the time, the weld, if it is a good weld and it gets good penetration, will last longer, or not last longer, will not break where it was, the piece of metal will not break where it was welded. So if I welded this piece right here, took my electrode, this is electrode, this is a 6013 electrode, is what I like to use. 60, the numbering system, it's the first two numbers, so if it's a 60, it's 60,000 pounds per square inch. That's its tensile strength. And then the 1 and the 3 are the position that it can be welded in, and one of them is the coating that's on this, the flux that's on this, and the other is the position. I can't remember which one. That doesn't really matter. I know that this rod, it can be welded horizontally, vertically, overhead. So this is a good all around rod. So I can take this rod and I can put me a bead in here, and I can weld this in, whipping it back and forth. If I get good penetration and a good weld, good solid weld, then I could essentially take this piece and I could wrench on it and bend it, and it's never going to pop loose. It'll never break apart from this. This piece might break, but it will never break where I welded it. So this is an electrode, this is a stinger, and this is a ground. So the type of welding I do is called stick welding. It's just what I have. I'll eventually get a MIG. MIG is a wire, and you still have a ground, and you have what they call a gun, and the wire takes the place of the electrode, and it's got a gas that shields it. So the flux on this electrode, the green coating, so there's a piece of metal inside here, the green coating burns off and creates a gas. I think it's hydrogen and something else. Well, as it burns, it shields that metal, that puddle that you're putting in, that weld that you're doing. It shields that metal, and it allows the impurities from getting into that metal, and it forms a slag on top of it, and you chip it off, wire wheel it, and then you're able to weld on top of it. A MIG welder, however, just has wire that comes out of the gun, and it's on the spool that's attached to the welder, and there's gas, and the gas comes out of the gun as well. So whenever you weld, the metal itself, the wire goes in, the gas shields it, and finished product is you don't have to clean it. So there's no slag or anything to clean off. There's another type of welding called TIG welding. I won't get into that, but it's a more tedious process used for welding aluminum or stainless. It's just a different type process. It requires a really clean surface. MIG welding requires a really clean surface. Stick welding, however, great idea to clean, but you don't necessarily have to. It's considered farm welding, as some people call it, because a stick welder will burn through the coating, the mill scale on this piece of metal. It'll burn through paint, rust, whatever. Of course, it's ideal to clean it. That way you don't get as many inclusions. But if you clean it, you just get a better product. But you don't have to. I could weld this right now, and it would still be just as strong as if, well, maybe not just as strong, but it would be strong enough to do what I would want it to do. So that's welding. The welder I use is a Craftsman welder, and I will show you all that because it is a old welder. So I should have started that other video with a disclaimer. I am not a licensed welder. I'm not a certified welder. I know what I know from watching my dad weld, watching YouTube videos, and practice. Practice is the key to welding. You won't get it on your first time, I guarantee it. But this is the welder I use. It's a 180 amp welder. It's a Craftsman Sears Roebuck. This thing is like a 1960s model welder. You got a high and a low heat, and it's a 220 volts, 37 amps. It's a good little welder. It's not the best out there, I know that, but for what I am using it for, it's perfect. Keep in mind, I built that smoker, the two 500-gallon smoker, the trailer and the smokers with this welder. So it would be really hard for me, or it's going to be really hard for me to show the puddle, but whenever this piece of metal and this piece of metal and the electrode are melting, it creates a glowing red puddle. And basically what you want to do is you want to work that puddle back and forth, and you're essentially filling in this gap. But remember, I said it's not gluing. You're actually creating one piece of metal whenever you do that. So you whip it back and forth, you fill in that gap, and you get a bead. And whenever you clean it off, it should look decent. It shouldn't look like bubble gum stuck to the metal. The first smoker I built, my prototype smoker, it looked bad. It looked like bubble gum, and like I said, practice just makes perfect. It's all it's all in how you start your arc, how you carry it. As this electrode melts down, you got to move with it. It's complicated, but with practice, anyone could really do it. Once you've completed your weld, you need to make sure you clean off the slag. That's from the outer layer burning off the rod, and that shields that weld and keeps impurities from getting into your weld and causing it to be weaker than it should be. This was my old light setup. I made these custom boxes. This was before I really knew a lot about welding. Obviously, it's held up. But the reason I'm replacing these is I don't like this cage. So this is just really sharp. I have a kid now, nieces, nephews. For some reason, they love playing on the trailer. And I just really don't want them to get their clothes caught on this, get hurt or cut, rip their clothes. So I looked around. I thought about just rebuilding the cage a different way, you know, cleaning up the sharp edges. But I looked around good old Amazon and I found these. And these will provide protection for the lenses. This will fit in here. It's got a side marker lens that goes there. And for the tag, I'm going to put another light on the bottom, a white light to shine down on the tag. I don't know if you really need that, but I figure better safe than sorry. So I'll mark where my holes go in these to mount it. I'll drill those, and then I'll drill my holes for my wires to come through. I'll paint these up, and they'll be ready to install in a day or two after the paint dries. But definitely want to paint them before I put them on here. And then after that, I'll wire them up, make sure everything works, and this trailer project will be complete. As far as I'm thinking right now, it will be complete. I didn't realize when I bought these that they were going to be so big, and I kind of want them to sit like this, but they stick out an extra 2 inches. So I'm going to slide them in here and make sure it's level. Stick my pin through and mark. See, it's my 2 marks, so that's where I'll drill a 1/4 inch hole, maybe a 5/16. We'll see. 5/16 might be a little big. Anyways, I'll drill 2 holes there. Drill 3 holes in the bottom to fit these lights, and it's a white light, and so I'll drill 3 holes, 1 for the wire and then 2 for the bolts. I'll just put it on right there. I might do 2 because I have extras just for the fun of it. And I'll put those in. That'll light up the tag at night. Alright, let's do the other side. Before I drill any holes, I always like to pre-punch, and I'm just doing a center punch on this. Gives a bit of place to start. You know what? Let's make sure that this is straight. Alright, and then on my left one, I'll turn it over. thin metal. Don't know that I need cutting oil, but it doesn't hurt. There we go. So certain applications you don't need to use nylon lock nuts, but where there's going to be a lot of vibration, it's always nice to do that. They don't cost that much more, and it's just a little bit of added security. The trailer's complete. The lights are working great. I'm really pleased with how this project turned out. Thank y'all for watching this video, and if you don't mind, like, comment, and subscribe, and keep an eye out. There'll be more videos coming. I'm going to work on a small miniature smoker. That'll probably be my next video. So stay tuned, and thank you for watching.